lost to Ted there, you know?
Yeah.
Close fight, but it is what it is. I wanted to see his skill set some more, you know? That guy's got some insane ideas anyway, but again, you wonder, right? Because when you're in situations like that, and that's what I loved about the Pettis fight too, is that his moxie as far as his comeback is when you got someone just trying to cage fuck you've got to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, when Yoel was trying to lay on Bobby, I know I'm bringing up all these fights that are later in the card, but he was doing brilliant, I mean, a lot of brilliant things. But one of the things he'll do is relax, and then get head control and probably an overhook if he can, and then he spins out really violently.
Yeah.
So you've got to do that. If you're a striker and the other person is a cage, humper or whatever, you've got to find a way to get out of that. You should be training that all camp, every camp. If you're not good there,
In a way, this could be a good thing for him in the long run.
He's young. He'll be fine. It's just that's what he needs to work on, I think.
I'm not comparing him to John Jones, but do you remember when John Jones first came into the UFC and he was doing all this crazy stuff in every fight, and now he's more refined, he's more, he goes back to the basics. Maybe Dia Casey will look at something like that and he'll go a bit more basic. Not that he won't throw these amazing kicks and what he does, but he seems to, not rely, but he seems to throw a lot of them when maybe it's not the right opportunity to throw them. So maybe he'll,
Yeah. And again, to use a Pettis parallel, straight punches.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing if we want to talk about the Verdum fight. Sometimes, just to expand upon your point, flashy shit is awesome. But if your 101 stuff isn't perfect, at that level, I don't know. It's cool. You'll catch the lower rank guys, but. They're gonna see it coming. They watch film. They have coaches. If you don't stick to jabs, and then when you feel like you've got an opportunity to get a little crazy and creative, then you do that. You can't just be creative for 15 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not a reliable strategy.
Plus,
it's not real.
If you play any video game in the world, and we all know video games replicate real life, when you do crazy superhero moves, it always drains your energy, and that's real in real fights. It's like to do a high level, you know what I mean? To use a high level skill move takes a lot more energy than it does to use a fundamental. So, like a Street Fighter, when you try and do a Hadouken or whatever like that, you'll exhaust your thumbs, and these things happen.
Yeah.
So let's jump into 213. Just pick the LCM, stand on the far side of the screen and go, yeah, and piss your mate off. That's what I used to do.
The new ownership wants to put that on the fights. They want to put bars, life bars on the top.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me with all the shit going on lately.
Yeah, don't talk to me about them. It's ridiculous. Todd Grisham. UFC 213. Let's talk about it. You two guys are going to lead the dance in this one, because I'll be watching the recordings. So, do you just want to start? You done your breakdown as well of Robert Whittaker, and you also had a breakdown of Yoel Romero. What did we think of the main event? Was it the right decision?
Oh, yeah. Some could argue you could have given the first to Whittaker, but I wouldn't. I would give it to Yoel.
Yeah.
I rewatched it only once, but I saw that oblique kick when it happened. I tweeted that out right away. I was like, that's not good. Because the way that he ate it oblique, it's Chaspas kick, but everyone calls it an oblique kick. Anyway, when the way that he was coming forward, and he does I always did this too, because I didn't wrestle in high school, and I know you guys don't even have wrestling, do you? Really?
No. Not in high school.
At all?
No, we'd have wrestling in gyms if you went to, but we don't. It's not. You don't.
You have to go find it. It's not
part of a curriculum.
No.
Okay. So my high school that I went to didn't have wrestling. So for whatever reason, I didn't do any grappling till later. I did all striking since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
With that said, as you know, I'm a huge mark for Roy Jones, and this will make sense in about 20 seconds. So whenever I got into, say, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, even though my original roots were Taekwondo, karate, I always draped my left hand because I was trying to emulate Roy Jones, right?
Yeah.
And Bobby Nux does the same thing. Now, the reason that he wants to do that is to have a takedown defense kind of set in place, right? And it worked for me the same way.
Yeah.
The reasons that I did it are maybe different, but it's the same result and it's the same efficacy, right? you having a low draped hand, and you can hide that lead jab, which, by the way, the distance that dude covers is insane. And even on that bum knee, he was doing it. So what you had was really good strategies from both guys. Yoel actually, in a loss, looked as good as he's ever looked. It's hard to see that sometimes in a loss, if that makes sense. But to get hurt like that on a pre-existing injury, and someone released a tape of him doing warm-ups like maybe 2 days before, and he was favoring it. So that shit was real. Now, who knows if Yoel saw that? I don't know, because it landed just so perfect timing-wise, and that's a hard kick to time.
And then he stopped kicking as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say, as far as who won that, to me, it's kind of clear cut that Yoel won 1-2, and then Robert won the 3-4-5, and I think it was 5 really convincingly, right?
Yeah.
Technically, where do we start? There's so much to talk about, but talk about toughness. Now, unlike prior discussed Gaethje fight, and again, I'm not. That dude is awesome. I'm not knocking him at all. What I'm trying to say is there's a difference between getting rocked and then coming back. Like Whitaker didn't get hurt because of a concussion. It was a goofy kind of thing, like a freakish injury, if you will, or whatever, And even on bad wheels, and he's not one to switch stance much either. He did more in that fight than he normally does. Yeah. So you're kind of fucked with Yoel always standing southpaw and throwing that kick with the leaping fashion that he does, and he's obviously a freak athlete, So it was just, when that happened, it was like, shit, that's his game. I mean, takedown defense, the way he throws his hips out, he overhooks well and whizzers out. I thought a lot of that shit would be nullified because he was going to be hurt, but his corner gave him some good advice. It was kind of like the old Jackson to GSP, like, I think my groin is pulled. He's like, fucking hit him with it. Yeah. It was that kind of thing, like, toughen up. So a lot to like, man. I could talk about the technique all day. I've studied both of those guys a ton before that fight. So, Whitaker, I think, is a great example of a couple of things. Steadfast improvement of a young fighter if they put their time in, right? Because I don't think Australia, and of course I don't mean any disrespect, I don't think it's like chock full of MMA gyms, like high level. It can't be. I mean, I know there's the Golden Coast. Where's John Wayne Parr from?
We had John Wayne.
There's like a big Muay Thai.
Yeah. We had John Wayne was on with us there a couple of weeks ago. I'm not. He is Sydney.
Wherever that is.
It's more Muay Thai. It's either, I suppose they're closer to Thailand as well. So Muay Thai is a lot bigger in Australia than MMA.
Oh, right. Yeah, I didn't even think about the Thailand connection. But the point being is that for him to get as good as he has, where he has, at the age that he is telling of a guy that's got some serious work ethic. Yeah. And for him to make the really intelligent decision to stop cutting to 170, he's a great example of why you cannot deplete your natural body that much. Yeah. I mean, yes, be in shape, but not to the point of, shuffling to a scale or pulling out of main events,
And in the fifth, he wasn't, as you said, he was in good shape. He wasn't that tired in the fifth, even with the bum leg. And one thing that
the takedown defense for how many rounds, right?
Exactly, against the superstar wrestler. Another thing, the takedown defense. But one thing we brought up in the Joanna fight was the way when they do get taken down, where they land and the positioning. That's one thing that I caught with the fight as well. When he got taken down, he was always in a good position to pop back up. Every single time. He never landed on his back. He never gave up the takedown. So I thought that was very, very impressive.
For students of the game or younger people that are training, one thing you want to watch about his takedown defense, there's 1,000 things, but the obvious things that you should look for. His ability to find an overhook, like for to whizzer his hips out, and the rate at which his hips move out of position was just incredible. And his back to someone getting cage humped, the way that he was getting out of cage situations, especially in those later rounds, like he wasn't letting them lay. I think it was 4 and 5. Yeah. He was doing that like stall, defense, and Yoel's got really incredible and like unique trips against the cage. If you saw what he was trying to do, And then the way that Whitaker was defending them, it was brilliant. He kept blading his hips in a way so that you all couldn't use like fulcrum points in order to bring him down. Or if he did, it was only kind of to a hand, you know?
Yeah.
He never really like slammed him or got him down, you know? He got him down, but he'd pop up quick enough. Or like you said, those kind of like cat scrambles like Joanna was doing where it's more of a whizzer hip out and then just kind of let it ride, you know, so you can pop up.
Yeah.
It was incredible, man. Incredible performance. One of the best in a long time.
Yeah. It's somebody that
I don't think a lot of people are picking him. I think he might have been the favorite, but in conversation, I didn't hear many people.
People have been
him,
sleeping on Robert Whitaker for a long time, and I've been one of them guys. Like, because he was tough. Was he in Tough Smashes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so I just sort of slept on him, like, and I think you've picked him every time on his selections,
except for against Jacare.
Yeah.
The only one.
Yeah. So and like he sort of slept on him, and now he's got a belt wrapped around his waist. What's amazing about it was, you see Bisping coming in. I was like, I've nothing but respect for you, and then he fucks his belt on him. But you can have that belt because this is bullshit. And Bisping just went off as Bisping does.
Yeah.
Somebody that I know you will have loved seeing back in the big win column as well was Anthony Showtime Pettis defeating Jim Miller. So how did you feel with your boy on that one?
A little bit. Did you ask me about Pettis Miller?
Yeah.
Okay, so about time, Anthony. Thank you. As a fan and as a friend of Duke's, it was really nice to see what we think of as Showtime back. So, a couple of technical things. I always said this about him, especially when he like armbarred Benson and won the UFC belt. His ability to strike so well was also predicated on the fact that he was so good off of his back. And if you watch like the couple chances Miller had, there were two notable ones. One was when he was on top, the way in which Anthony was throwing his hips up, the speed at which he throws up triangles and attempts arm bars is just, it's incredible. I believe he's a brown belt now, but he's always kind of had those hips. And his jiu-jitsu coach, Daniel Wanderlei, he's out of Rufus Sport too. He knows how to, again, the MMA jiu-jitsu thing, like Anthony's got that usually in spades. We hadn't seen it in a while. He also had, Miller had his back at one point. The way that he reversed that by using like head to the mat pressure and turning in at the right moment, that's all feel. When someone has your back, a lot of escapes are feel. Like you can't, as a white belt, you never be able to do that. Because you can't see shit, clearly, you know? Yeah. So he just, from a technical standpoint, there's that, right? Miller's super tough, but his striking was great. He was always open. He was playing a lot of open stance. Miller be southpaw, and he'd like to play on as a righty, like he did with Benson Henderson, land body kicks, and then very straight, very fast punches. That a lot of it was the body kicks, because the open stance, right? Usually that works in like a favor of trying to get to the liver. But either way, your body is exposed if I'm orthodox and my opponent's southpaw, the body's generally open for body kicks, right? So, and Pettis used to always do that with reckless abandon, because go ahead and take him down and he'll submit you. And that, you saw a little bit of that, a smidge anyway. But the straight punching, the angles, and what I noticed from him that was better than normal is his ability to kind of retract. He wasn't overcommitting. You saw a couple of Showtime moves, but he would like jab, and when Miller would go to counter, he was like pulling. You know what I mean? His boxing looked better. So his angular sense, when he was switching stances, Duke was giving him just phenomenal instruction from the corner. And hat tip to Miller for gutting it out or whatever. But Pettis looked like Pettis. You know, it was wonderful to watch. I love watching that guy when he's on, because it's just it's fun striking. You know.
Yeah. That's one thing that I spotted as well. The way he was just stepping out of the pocket and then landing and then stepping out of the pocket while Miller was backed up against the cage. I think for basically the first round entirely, that's what the first round was, where Miller was just backed up against the cage and couldn't get anything going. As well, one thing you brought up, the kicks. The way he throws is body kicks, his head kicks, and even the front teep. Exact same setup. You can't even see any difference in the setup.
He throws them all at the same angle. And I don't know if you remember, there was one time where he did a push kick that got Miller in the face.
Yeah.
He throws that at
This
an
way.
angle and then comes up. There's a way to do that. I learned it from Phil Nurse. Everyone calls it something different. I forget what Phil calls it. Some people call it like a Michael Jackson kick, but your leg because it comes up
Yeah.
and then straight.
down. Yeah.
So you throw like almost like it's gonna come like a round kick, and then you turn your hips to shoot straight. He did that with that high kick. The camera didn't catch it well, but that's what he was doing. It was brilliant.
Lovely.
And those teeps in the third round, you saw the result. Yeah. Those are, the jab and teeps as far as striking, so underutilized. You know, but like you said, distance-wise, in that whole pressing him against the cage thing, he was so creative. And the way, again, he was putting his punches together with his kicks. And you hear those body kicks after all that speed and the zero tell on any of it. The only tell he has on his strikes is when he gets crazy and does leaping cartwheel shit. But, you know, everything that's a basic strike, if you will, you know, in your number system was just, God, zero tell. Super fast, precise, and he retracts well. I've worked, you know, I've known Duke forever, and one of the things he always talks about is, like, especially when it comes to leg kicks or kicks in general, is kicking and retracting. Like, a lot of coaches don't teach. If they teach it, they don't teach it right. You've got to, like, when you kick something, you've got to be real light on your pivot foot so that you can pull said kicking leg back and get out of there. Otherwise, you're susceptible either to get countered or to get, you know, taken down or whatever the case. Yeah. So, awesome performance from Pettis. Just brilliant.
The